Welcome to this Monday edition of the Touchdown Club. We're looking forward to hearing two unique guests. Glad to have you here. I was fortunate enough. I had a little photo shoot that I'm doing that I did and got to be here at 10:30. And I want to see everybody. I want you to raise your hand if you were here at that door at 10:30. Raise your hand. Let's give them a round of applause for our early bird Touchdown Club members. That's another whole world that I did not know existed being here at 10:30. Very impressed. Love it. Listen, we'll do breakfast if you want to. We'll get Waffle House in here and we'll get this thing to going. All right. We've got a few substitutes today filling in for our head table. One is a new board member. He's a local attorney, very sharp guy. He's a big man, and he's been a 50-yard line member. Ronald, how many years you been a 50-yard line member? 4 or 5? 4 or 5. And glad to have him on our board. Please welcome to give our invocation, Ronald Davis, everybody.
Hello, everybody. I hope I do a better job than my first assignment from David. He'd asked me about helping him secure our coach at UAPB, and I fumbled that one. And so,
Maybe a good thing this year.
After our record, I can see why he knew something we didn't know going into this year. But if you bow your heads, please. Dear Father, we come thanking you again for the many blessings you bestowed upon us. We come thanking you for giving us this opportunity to fellowship with one another and to enjoy what we all love, and that's football. We ask that we would do all things that is pleasing to you, and we thank you for all the things that you've done, and we would ask that you would bless each of us as we travel back to our places of business and homes, and would nourish this food that we've eaten today. Thank you for all these blessings. Thank you. In the Son, Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks, Ronald. Yeah, it's funny. I reached out to Coach Coleman and could not get a response from UAPB, from anybody. So finally I called Ronald. I said, "Hey, can you help me out?" And so Ronald made the effort. This was back when, Ronald? August? Had such a great year last year, and we wanted to get him in this year. And so Ronald said, "I've tried. I just can't get him to commit." And I held an open week for, I guess, maybe until right before the season started, August 1. And then, funny, I got a phone call about third week of September. It was the SID for UAPB, and it just said, "David, sorry it's taken me a little while, and this is granted like 6 weeks, to return your call. I've talked to Coach, and he'd love to take that spot if you've got it in November." Well, we'll work on that next year, Ron. That's exactly right. Excited about having our guest speakers today. How many of you enjoyed Ike Forte and Roland Sales last week? Was that not great? Of course, next week we have Barry Foster. For those of you who don't know, Steve Atwater had to back out. Very disappointed about that. He apologized immensely. I wanted to say he was sorry to everybody, and I just told him, I said, "Listen, you were one of the big draws for this year everybody was excited about," and he apologized and said that he would try everything he could to do to be here next year. But Barry Foster, who had a great career with the Razorbacks and also played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he will be here. He's living in Texas, so he'll be our guest speaker. And that's the last meeting, Al. Can you believe that? We'll also be doing our voting for National Player of the Year, SEC Coach of the Year, Defensive Player, and Offensive Player of the Year. So we'll do voting and hear Barry Foster. And then the two events that I want to push, we'll have our banquet in February for Lou Holtz. Now, that's where we're going to present the Cliff Harris Award trophy. As you can see, it's over here. Very nice. As nice as any trophy. And I've seen them all because I'm on a national committee of awards, and so I got the Broyles Award, and this is as good as any of them, and that's for Division II, III, and NAIA. So Lou Holtz will be speaking at that banquet in February, so you'll have the chance to buy tickets soon for that. I also want to encourage you to, if you've never been to the Broyles Award, that's coming up December 10th. There are some tickets left. You can get a table of 10, I think, for $1,000, and so it's $100 a piece. But if you love college football, you got the best coaches in America. As a matter of fact, not many people realize that Jimbo Fisher was a Broyles Award finalist. He was the head coach at Florida State when he was at LSU back in the early 2000s. You remember Gus Malzahn and his big win this weekend. He was a Broyles Award winner. So I encourage you to do those two because those are great events to support both the Touchdown Club and the Broyles Award. With this last meeting, make sure you two RSVP, if you could, to lrtouchdown.com. Do want to thank our sponsors real quick, Twin City Limousines, Dale Bennett, Popeye, Greg Hatcher, 103.7 The Buzz. Thank those guys, Steve Johnson, Justin Akery, RJ's out there doing the show today in the lobby. Little Rock Convention and Visitor Bureau, proud to be the Little Rock Touchdown Club, as we are so proudly called. Metters, Adams, and Lee, and Andrew is going to be filling in for Rex today. And Andrew, we appreciate your support as a sponsor this year and done so much in the community. Epic Health, who's been with us for the first year, we look forward to working with them again next year, and they've got some exciting news coming up. Wendy's, 65 stores across Arkansas. I do want to thank Nan Trammell for sponsoring the Dan Hampton and Willie Rofe Awards. It's award city. I'm just going to tell you, it's I dream awards, and it's funny. My girlfriend was laughing at me because she said, "You have your 2 kids in the car today," and I have that in one back seat, and I've got the Broyles Award in the other side of the back seat, and that's it. And they are seat belted in. Do want to thank Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings. We had Antoine and Patrick. Are they here today? There they are back in the back. They were down at the game this week in the Battle of the Ravine where we did the unveil for the Cliff Harris Award and thought it was great. Cliff was very honored. We do want to thank the folks over there, Judy and Antoine and all the guys, Patrick. They do a great job. And the tough part now starts. I will say this. We have a ton of nominees. Cliff was really surprised when he heard it. You think about it, we have 500 schools to draw from. NAIA, Division II, Division III, 500 schools. The Broyles Award has 120. So we're at 4 times the amount of schools. So we'll be announcing this week the list of nominees. Then in 2 weeks, we'll cut it down to a finalist group of about 15 to 30. And then just a few days before Christmas, we'll announce the winner. So, Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, we thank your support of the Cliff Harris Award. Crane Automotive, thanks to Larry Crane and Drew and the gang over at Crane for being such great supporters. I think this is their 3rd year. We couldn't do it without them. Thank you so much, Crane Automotive. Democrat Gazette, Wally Hall, Tabitha Cunningham, thank you guys so much for supporting us every year. And Lunsford Metropolitan Bank, we thank you as always. It's been so good for 9 years to look to my left and see my partner right there. It's been great to always be able to ask for money and you say yes. You know, that's not always my personal history with banks. And so, yes, yeah, let's give them a round of applause, please, to Lunsford Metropolitan Bank and all of our sponsors. I do want to thank Casey and Wayne and Beth here at the Embassy Suites. You guys rock. You do a great job. They always take good care of us. Dwayne Duncan's taking pictures all over the place. He was down at the Battle of the Ravine. He's here today. Dwayne, thank you so much for pictures. Matt Johnson doing our live stream. So if you want to let anybody know that can't be here that wants to hear our speakers today, just go to lrtouchdown.com for the live stream. We even have Kelly Lassane out today. Kelly, I just want to let you know, you give her some grief next week because you know where she's at today? She's going to see Justin Timberlake with the girls. Yes. So this is okay. She said that's the one pass that her husband gives her to go have fun to watch Justin Timberlake. So good that she's got a day off. I do want to thank Marilyn Miller, Melissa Nelson, who always helps so much, Marnie Sharp, the girls for taking over today and running the show. We appreciate them so much. And all of our 50-yard line members, thank you so much for your support of the club. It's hard to believe. It's been a long year, y'all. Holy cow, this thing started back in mid-August. Remember, we were excited about the Razorbacks maybe going to a bowl game back then. But you're going to hear, I think you're going to hear some positive things today. I think you're going to hear some positive things. It's going to encourage you. I do want to recognize Al Watkins, the butcher shop, longtime tenant here in Wesley. Yeah, how about that? Al Watkins, the butcher shop. Used to eat there after Razorback games back when it was up on top of Asher Avenue. I see Kevin Kelly. Now, I finally went to a high school football game Friday. And, I go because, PA puts up 50 and a half every week. So I'll go there, and the score is 28-6 Watson Chapel at halftime. I see Coach Kelly screaming like I've never seen him scream before. Even the mamas were not looking at me very nicely, so I said, I'm getting out of here at halftime. No joke. I leave at halftime. They kick an onside kick, recover, first play touchdown, and it's over with, 50-36 PA win. So I've been told to never come back to a PA game again. So glad to have Kevin here. And a great piece on Grantland television, grantland.com on Kevin, and just a really good piece. Makes you proud of Kevin and how he represents Arkansas. So glad to have you back here again. And, of course, guys, Richard, but Chris, he's produced several great Razorback players, and Hunter Henry is one of his guys. So I'm sure Chris is aware of Kevin Kelly. And I know that, Jim, you've got somebody special you want to introduce as well. Let's wait till you hear the numbers on our high school player of the week. Just when you think, how many times have I got up here and said, it can't get any bigger? I think we've got one bigger because most of the numbers we have are quarterbacks, right? Well, listen to this. Our Democrat Gazette High School Player of the Week is Woodlawn Junior running back Jeffrey Jones. Jeffrey rushed for 41 carries. And this is 2 weeks ago. 41 carries, which, you've heard people, run the ball 41 times. But his total yardage, 487 yards rushing. And if that wasn't enough, he ties the state record for rushing touchdowns in a game with 9 rushing touchdowns. And he had to, because I didn't even ask you, beat Hermitage, right? The score 72-52. So he had to do it. His coach was saying a minute ago he's got 1,499 yards on the season. Their season is over with. They play the double wing, but he's a good kid, and he's only a junior, so you're going to have him back again. So let's give a Little Rock Touchdown Club welcome to our Player of the Week, Jeffrey Jones. Do want to thank his coach for being here, Zach Branch, his parents, Tanya and Randy, and his girlfriend. You might be the first girlfriend that's ever been brought to the Little Rock Touchdown Club. Major brownie points, young man, because the MC gets to introduce your girlfriend, brownie points, and the fact she gets to see her superstar boyfriend get a standing ovation. Boom. You're out of the doghouse for at least a month, so congratulations. It's Kelsey, right? Is that right? Kelsey, glad to have you here. All right, Rex is not here today. As you can imagine, he is so hoarse he cannot speak after 5 hours of football. Did anybody go to the Battle of the Ravine? I tell you, I got a chance to go, and it was absolutely spectacular. It made you proud to be an Arkansan. Rex had to be out of town this weekend, and so we've got a guy who's filled in for him before. He's no novice about giving us a recap. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Andrew Metters.
David, thanks so much. I tell you, it's kind of funny. Kelly is at the Justin Timberlake concert, and last night I was at Pink. So it's funny how it works. There were like 12,000 females wandering around Verizon Arena. That was a heck of a show. Okay, I talk slower than Rex, and I talk a little softer. So I'm not Rex. I love Rex's deals. I'm a little bit different, a little bit more NFL. Going to the NFL a bit. This is the Touchdown Club, after all. But I tell you, something really funny happened over the weekend and this morning. I've been on the phone with Hollywood agents, David. Yes, I have been hired to do the script for Las Vegas 2, the movie, the sequel, which I saw the original this weekend. The stars cannot be, because the stars are charging too much money, so I have to come up with my own cast. Of course, we're going to have Frank Fletcher. He'll be the first of the 4 going to Vegas. Tommy Smith will play the role of the grumpy Robert De Niro character in Las Vegas 2. Roger Scott, because he's Roger Scott, he can't be left out. He's in the movie. And David Basil, who's getting married, so it's the bachelor party in Vegas. Yeah. Las Vegas, too. So the pool scene, all of Basil's ex-girlfriends are going to be there, so that's going to be a great scene. Chantel does show up, so there's drama. You got to see the movie. But the main subplot is Frank Fletcher has to give away 12 cars if the Razorbacks go 0-8. So he's looking to get some money down on Mississippi State on the game this weekend. So he gives Roger Scott $100,000 on Mississippi State money line to bet him just to win the game. Well, they watch at a big pool cabana, huge party. Mississippi State wins the game 21-20. They're celebrating, and Frank lets out a blood-curdling scream as he looks at his ticket, Mississippi State minus 1.5 for $110,000. He strangles Roger Scott. Roger's last words in the movie are, "But you told me to bet Mississippi State." Then Steve Landers shows up, Frank's old-time nemesis. So it's a contest. Who has the biggest pool cabana, the biggest plane, the biggest suite, the most comps? Who sells the most Chryslers? A fight breaks out, and it all goes downhill from there. Moving along to football. ESPN Game Day, I was so impressed. The Battle of the Ravine was talked about on the set for like 2 minutes. Chris Fowler called it Wachita. And so you wonder, with like 400 interns, someone could have told him, the right pronunciation. I'm sure Rex really got fired up on that one. But the Reddies, as Basil said, they won 60-52. First time the state school goes 11-0, back-to-back seasons since UCA in 1987 and 1988. I'm sure that was a great game to be at. In the Sun Belt, Arkansas State wins. They go to 4-1 in conference next week. We're November 30th. They're at Western Kentucky at 3 o'clock. So that'll be, of course, fun to watch for obvious reasons. This weekend in the SEC, it is Texas A&M at LSU. Johnny Football is still going for the Heisman Trophy, and both defenses are not quite as good as they were last year. Zach Mettenberger of LSU was last seen crawling off the field after 3 straight sacks against Alabama, so we'll see how he responds. The Hogs, Mississippi State, this Saturday, Woodward World Stadium, 11:21 a.m. Rex the tailgating. The tailgating will shift to afterwards, and so that'll be something for all of us to look forward to. A great game in college football that I can't wait for is Baylor at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is quietly having a great season. And Baylor, of course, they lock up Art Briles for a 10-year contract to keep the Longhorns at bay when they come calling. And Baylor's 8.5-point favorite there. Should be a crazy high-scoring game. This past week in the SEC, I won't go over all the scores, but Auburn 43, Georgia 38. This is absolutely amazing. Who all watched the game? Who all saw the ending? The series was 54-8 going in. It is the oldest rivalry in the Deep South. The 117th meeting. Auburn was lucky to win. The Auburn receiver had no idea where the ball was as the 2 Georgia guys just got right there together and tipped it to him. They'll have a mural of that in the Auburn football facilities, I'm sure. One of the most dramatic finishes in SEC history. And Aaron Murray will be the heartbreak kid after what happened in the SEC championship game last December against Alabama. And that right there, the look on his face, as great as he played, it's something to behold. Interim coaches, random football thoughts over the weekend. I watched Ed Ogeron of USC. He goes 6-0 as an interim coach. I don't think he's lost.
Yeah, he's lost 1.
6-1. Okay, well, they're back in the top 25, and they're doing great things. I thought back to our interim head coach at the Razorbacks with John L. Smith. That's a quick comparison, but I won't even go there. On a more serious note, famous Jameis Winston of Florida State. I don't understand why the media is not complaining about this situation. He's been drug into a sexual allegation situation that happened a year ago. The kid is in the middle of a Heisman campaign. You know, as much as I can read on it, I don't understand it. It could sway voters unfairly. And I say the authorities should either charge him with a crime or you clear him of the whole situation because it's wrong. Voters have already admitted it changes and sways the way that they're going to vote. Are they going to wait until a week after the Heisman voting to clear him? Would that be fair? Moving on, the Iron Bowl. Alabama at Auburn down the Plains. The winner goes to Atlanta from the SEC West. Basil, it's the first time since 1994 that both teams have 0 or 1 loss, and the winner goes to the title game. NFL, real quick. Am I the only one happy to no longer hear the Kansas City Chiefs are undefeated?
Kansas City hate?
Well, no, it's their schedule, for those who study the NFL, their schedule is totally backloaded. They'll have 3 or 4 losses, and they were just built up, this huge 9-0 team when they barely win. The defense is great. They don't score very much.
That's a Dallas Cowboy fan talking right there.
No, I love the Chiefs as a kid, actually. Von Miller for Denver. Tommy Smith will love the numbers on Von Miller. With him back on that defense the last 4 games, it's an entirely different defense. Lastly, the Kiffins for the family 2013 will be Annus Horribilis, like the Queen of England said one year in England. The Cowboys gave up 40 first downs against the Saints. You have to try to give up 40 first downs, people. I didn't believe it when I first saw it. And Lane Kiffin gets kicked off the bus at the airport. He can't even get back to the campus. Bad year for the Kiffins. The Dallas defense is on schedule to give up over 7,000 yards this season. That would be the second worst defense in the history of the National Football League. Duke, Miami, Basil will tell you on the radio, upset special, AB. Duke will beat the Miami Hurricanes. They did. The Giants, Dallas Cowboys next Sunday at New York. Somehow it's a pick'em game. Don't understand it. I love the Cowboys, but the Giants will continue their role. That's football.
All right, Andrew, thank you. Thought we had a little addition of a crossfire or something there with the political stance by AB getting on a soapbox. Just out of curiosity, how many think that A&M goes into Baton Rouge and beats LSU this weekend? How many think LSU wins? All right. What about Hogs versus Mississippi State? Does anybody think Mississippi State's going to win this game? Raise your hand. All right. I hope not. Let me ask you this. If Alabama and FSU had to play right now, how many people pick FSU? Just a few. The rest of you pick Bama. Between Alabama and Auburn, does anybody think Gus can beat Alabama? Raise your hand if you think Gus can beat Alabama. Funny, I got a text from Gus this morning. By the way, David Cutcliffe, another former Broyles Award winner. Gus texted me early this morning and said, is the deadline too late to get my Broyles Award nomination in? So here's a head coach in the middle of all this, taking time to make sure he wanted to give some attention to his assistant coach, which I thought was really, really classy. I did want to thank Chantel. I mentioned the 500 schools. She spent 6 hours helping me with the information of gathering all these nominees. So that's the unexpected downfall of dating me, Chantel. I'm sorry, but I just have to give her props for giving so much of her time yesterday to help with the Cliff Harris Award. Yeah, there you go. Give a round of applause. Hey, I learned from you, Jeffrey. Take advantage of it while you can, brother. All right, we've got two great guests, and what's interesting, I can't wait. There's so many different ways we can go with this recruiting question. And most of you are here. Most of you probably will enjoy this. Some people don't get the recruiting thing, don't like it. But I think it would be good that we not only talk about players maybe that the Razorbacks may get or may be looking at, just the whole process of recruiting. What's legal, what's being done, what's not good for kids. So Jim Rasco, would you come up? I know you've got a special guest to introduce. And also, one other thing before I forget. Jeff Long being honored November 21st. Is that this Saturday? What is the 21st? This Thursday. This Thursday, the Pinnock Boys and Girls Club, 6:30 to 8:30. For ticket information, 666-8816. That's always a great banquet to help the Boys and Girls Club. It's Jeff Long, November 21st. Call 666-8816. Jim Rasco, would you come introduce our special guest?
Okay, first, being a Hendricks alum, it's my pleasure to introduce the head coach of the Hendricks Warriors, Buck Buchanan. Just completed their first season since 1960. And also, let me take one more moment to introduce a special guest that's here with us today for the first time. He and I share the same birthday, which was yesterday. His was really special as he turned 40. So please join me with a Touchdown Club round of applause for my nephew, Hamp Rasco, son of my brother Terry, right here on the front row. The big 4-0. I won't tell you how old I am, but if you know Sidney Moncrief's number, you can add his 40 to Sidney Moncrief's number and get how old I was yesterday. I didn't say just Sidney's, you got to add it to his. Okay, most of you recall that Steve Sullivan was our guest speaker 2 weeks ago, and all of you that know me or have heard me know that I'm very serious about my introductions, and I'm not a joke teller. But I do have a true story to share with you that came in after I'd already prepared my introduction of Sully. This story came from Dale Nicholson III. Where is Sully? He's back there in the back. There he is, way over here in this corner today. He's hiding. He was over here. All right, Sully is a dedicated father. He has 2 girls. When they were young, he took them to a park. He went down the slide with them, but he didn't see that there was a bar hanging too low for a grown man to clear. Fortunately, Sully's nose protected his face from the impact. He hurt his nose so bad that he couldn't do the sports that night. When his fill-in came on the air that night, the anchors asked him, "What happened to Sully?" His fill-in replied live on the air, "All I know is it has to do with 2 girls and a bar." True story. Okay, that's my one joke of the year. I'm going to quit on that one. Chris Hayes is, like most people in Florida, a transplant from somewhere else. He grew up in Topeka, Kansas, and attended Kansas State University. After a brief stint as sports editor in Dodge City, Hayes headed for upstate New York, where he spent 6 years in Glen Falls and Albany. But he couldn't take the cold and snow, and he headed for Orlando in 1998. During 15 years at the Orlando Sentinel, he has worked in nearly all facets of the sports department as a copy editor, a page designer, night sports editor, weekend sports editor, assignment editor, assistant sports editor, NFL editor, Florida Tuskers editor, reporter, and writer. He currently oversees recruiting coverage and writes a weekly column called The Prospector. Please welcome Chris Hayes. All right, Richard Davenport grew up here in Arkansas and is a graduate of McClellan High. He saw the Razorbacks play for the first time on October the 28th, 1972. I looked up the score of the game. It was in War Memorial Stadium, and the Hogs beat North Texas State 42-16. Is that right, Richard? All right. Around 2005, he started writing posts on Hogsville just for fun. 2 years later, in August of 2007, he became the Democrat Gazette's recruiting analyst. Currently, you see his recruiting column in the Democrat Gazette every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. You can read him anytime on Whole Hog Sports. You can see him once a week on KARK-TV, Channel 4, and you can hear his Recruiting Thursday every week on Larry Crane's FM station 93.3. All of you know him as the recruiting guy. So let's give a Touchdown Club welcome to one of our own, Richard Davenport.
Let's see. Would you, Chris, would you put that on? You're probably familiar with those, aren't you? Just clip that on your lapel. Yeah, 3 more. Let me get in the middle over there, too. All right, here you go, Richard. There's yours. All right, let's see here. All right. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate that. One of the reasons I felt it would be great to get, I asked Richard about doing a recruiting meeting. We hadn't done one in a couple of years, and plus I thought it would be good to get that thing. Sully, will that work? Can you hear? Okay, there you go. That it would be good not only get somebody from Arkansas, but get somebody from Florida, since Coach Bielema. Hey, Roger, will you step outside and get Casey? So we may need some help here on the sound. We really will. I thought it would be good to have somebody from Florida, since Coach Bielema was so focused going down that part of the state. So let's just dive in real quick. First of all, how in the heck, years ago there was no, Casey, I'm not sure why we're getting some feedback here. Years ago we didn't have recruiting columnists. We didn't have recruiting specialists. We didn't have websites. So talk about, first we'll start with you, Richard. How did your career go from where it was to now you're the recruiting guy for Arkansas?
Well, he kind of said that I've started as a hobby for Hogville.net, and one thing that I really got out of it is the relationships you build with kids, and you get to know them, and you meet a lot of good kids, and also high school coaches. And that kind of told myself that I might like to do something with it. And then I started doing a little bit for the Conway paper. Then Wally called, and the rest is history.
Did you ever think that, one would think off the top of my head, that would be a challenge? You're trying to chase down 18-year-olds and 17-year-olds that have girlfriends and coaches calling. Did you think going in, hey, this is going to be easy to do, this is going to be a challenge? What were your expectations in your mind based on sort of what you thought you were going to be dealing with?
Didn't have any expectations because I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. But once I got into it, you realize you had to build trust. That's the number one thing. You have to build trust. If a kid says, I don't want this out, you don't put it out. Probably the biggest burden on me for myself is to know I could really make life difficult for a kid, and if I did do that, it would really, really bother me. And it's something that I take very serious, and trust is vital with not only the kids but the parents and the high school coaches.
We'll get into that a little bit more. I'm interested just to hear how you do that. I mean, and how many kids you talk to and all that. So we'll get to that in a second. Chris, real quick, is this something that you saw down the road? Hey, one of these days I'm going to be the recruiting guy in the area of Orlando. For those who don't know, Orlando is sort of in the central part of the long part of Florida.
Yeah, right in the middle.
Yeah, right in the middle. And football is I'm telling you, football is big everywhere. Football is big in South Florida, but it's also in the Orlando area. I'm from Panama City, the Panhandle, where Emmitt Smith came from, and some other guys. But anywhere from Orlando down, there is just multitudes of players. So, in your mind, when you were first approached about, hey, would you do this? Were you reluctant? Were you what were you thinking at the time?
Well, we had a guy for years who was renowned for recruiting. His name was Bill Buckhalter. He retired in like 2005. So we were kind of missing a niche in the print aspect anyway. But as we got away from print journalism, which you're all aware of, and we've gone more online, we wanted to get something we could do in terms of content-driven material, and recruiting was the obvious choice.
Can you hear back there? Is his mic working? Wayne, let's see. You may just have to hold it close. Well, but when you did that, what were your expectations? Did you think, hey, same thing, am I going to be chasing 17, 18-year-old kids, or did you go, hey, this is something I think that I can enjoy? What was sort of your outlook knowing what you might be dealing with?
At first, we weren't real sure about how we would go about it, so we started rankings, and from that, it just evolved into where kids were going to school, and it really became a popular thing. So it got to the point where I really enjoyed dealing with the kids, like Rich said, and also it's a project that really helps a lot of kids too, because you do have your 5- and 4-star players who are going to go to the big colleges, but there's a lot of the 2-star guys who obviously need help.
Well, this is one of my first questions. How in the world do you know who to call? How do you know that the Razorbacks may be after a guy in California or Texas? How do you guys do your research to be able to find, because there could be 5,000 different kids to choose from?
Sources, and he's one of them for me in Florida, and I have several sources in Florida that I rely on, and throughout the country. And then it's all about sources, and then you hear a kid that is interested in Arkansas, and with the online and with Facebook and Twitter, I mean that it just really accelerates it. You hear more of the kids and their interest in schools, and may not be a source, but you hear it from other venues.
Well, I would think, too, I don't know if you've noticed, those of you who read the Democrat Gazette, we see a lot of columns by Richard that really, a lot of the focus is the Razorbacks. Now, I don't know about for you, Chris, are you a Gator guy? Do you focus on Gator, or do you focus on the entire state?
I do all of them, Florida State, Florida, Miami, UCF's right in Orlando, so UCF gets a lot of attention as well. And we just really branch out in terms of university coverage that way, but then also Orlando kids get the brunt of what I do.
Do you think that you writing those columns, Richard, do you think that's a benefit to the U of A? In other words, for example, if you call a kid down in Florida and say, hey, my name is Richard Davenport, I hear the Razorbacks are recruiting a kid. Do you think that's a plus for the Razorbacks? Do they know that you're contacting those kids? Do they know how much activity you have?
All college coaches know what we do. They follow what we report. So far as the kids and how what it may do to help Arkansas, yeah, there's not too many papers around the country that focuses on one team, and we do that, and we're a statewide newspaper, and whenever I write about a kid out of state, I always send them copies of the paper, because they're scrapbooks for the future, their parents like them and things like that. I try to separate myself from the competition in other ways, but yeah, the kids, they like that attention, but at the same time, about now, and he'll tell you, about now the kids are starting to get tired of it. They're easy to get a hold of, especially come in February. You start talking to the 2015 kids on a more regular basis. They're all loving it. But by midsummer or something, they're like, oh, man.
And they're changing their number.
Yeah.
We'll get to the mechanics here in just a second, but just to put some perspective, how many Division I players, FBS players, will come out of the state of Arkansas, you think, this year, if you had to guesstimate?
Ooh.
I won't hold you to
one.
it. Give me a high-low.
20.
So 20 FBS, that's 120 schools that you see that play for the BCS, 20. State of Florida, how many will come out?
Add 400 to that.
420. And that's why, again, even though you may have Florida, Miami, Florida State, they can only sign 25 or 30 kids. So that's why so many schools, including Arkansas, want to take advantage of getting there. And just to show you, too, before I forget, got to tell you the story. True story. I've shared this on the Buzz a few times. 1980, I went to my mailbox, and I opened up an envelope, and there was a white index card. And it says, please fill out this information and send back to me. So, and it said Little Rock, Arkansas. I forget where it was. And it was my weight, height, speed. You know who it was? Otis Kirk, back in 1980. So it's amazing how it started as simple as an index card, and now, as you mentioned, you've got websites. You've got, I mean, it's a big business, would you not say?
Oh, definitely.
So before we get to the Arkansas situation, for example, I won't embarrass him, but Chantel's son is a standout ninth grader at Bryant. Scoring unbelievable touchdowns, superstar. As a parent, do you see, is this a situation to where parents should reach out to try to get websites and different things to help? Or do you think it's a situation if a kid's good enough, coaches will find those players?
What I do is I tell parents, and I get a lot of questions because you just assume being in the recruiting business that everybody knows, but they don't. I encourage parents to send like video if they have it online, email all the colleges
To the recording coordinators at Recruiting Coordinator.
exactly, and as many schools, especially the schools they're interested in, and even the schools they feel like they may not be interested in, because the kid may be shooting for Alabama, Arkansas when he's a Division II kid. So
You say just send it straight to the recruiting coordinator. Don't use a website to help you. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. I'd send emails, but I always tell them to send it to 5 different coaches on the same team. Their position coach, maybe if they played D-back, the D-back coach, the defensive coordinator, the recruiting coordinator, even the head coach, because somebody's going to look at it.
And everybody, you can find emails now, so you can
right
target those folks. Well, as I mentioned, he's in the 9th grade. How early are we talking now? Basketball has certainly got to that level where you're talking about 7th and 8th graders, which I'll tell you, I know coaches. I deal with the Broyles Ward, so I know those coaches just don't like having to go deeper and deeper at younger kids. What are you guys seeing out on the streets and how young they're getting?
I can tell you there was an 8th grader standing on the sideline at FSU Syracuse game on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, I think is that the kid that was featured in ESPN the magazine, the kid from Louisiana?
No, that's a different one.
You know which one I'm talking
yeah,
about?
he's
there?
committed to LSU, isn't
He's
he?
committed to LSU, and he's in what grade? 9th?
8th.
Now, we see that in basketball. As 2 guys who cover it, do we like that?
I personally don't, but I mean, how do you stop it? You're not going to be able to stop it because honestly, the kid, I've seen video of the kid in the 8th grade, and you'd think that he was a senior in high school. So you have to, the earlier you get on a kid and you start developing a relationship with that kid, the better chances of you possibly getting a visit or, going beyond that of an official visit when they can as a senior. But it's unfortunate. I think it's a little. At one time, I would never call a sophomore because I thought it was just too soon. And now they're committing as 9th graders and 10th graders. So
the colleges have to do. If a kid says, "I want to come to Arkansas," he's going to be a player.
Competition
You've
does
got
it.
to
You
do it.
have
That's
to do
right.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
This is also what's probably going to have to speed up the signing period. There's going to have to be an early signing period because it's starting so early, and there's going to have to be more regulations because kids will have to start taking visits before their senior year.
What do you think about the age? How young?
I think it should wait till they're in high school at least. There should be a rule on that because to see a 7th grader or an 8th grader standing on the sideline on a football game is a little ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean you haven't even got to the high school yet to reach maturity. Why don't you tell everybody what happens, what the rules and regs are right now, recruiting seasons, how often coaches can call, and that kind of thing, because I don't think most of us know.
Well, right now during the season, the coaches can call a prospect one time a week.
Any coach.
Any coach, one time a week. Now, the kid can call the coach anytime, 24/7, but the coach is only allowed one call. And then it changes up in December a little bit.
So from August to December, 1 call per week.
Right, and during the spring evaluation period, which usually runs April 15th to May 31st, you're allowed 1 call during that whole evaluation period.
So that's changed now. So once you get past December, though, does that open up the floodgates for calls?
Yeah, you get 6 personal visits off campus, I believe. 6 personal visits until the point in January before signing day.
But can the coach call more than he said unlimited calling?
Leading up to an official visit, the week they have unlimited calls because a lot of times they have to communicate, get the travel plans in order. If he was only allowed one call during the week,
Yeah,
and
pretty
believe
much
me,
that.
dealing with a 17, 18-year-old kid, you'd have a lot of missed flights. You'd have a lot of kids not showing up. I'm telling you, I thank God I don't have to deal with, and I love dealing with kids. I really do. But I know as a 17, 18-year-old kid, I was irresponsible. And these college coaches have to make their livelihood off these guys. And it kills me when they tell me they're going to call me at a certain time. They never call me. But that's part of it. But those coaches, they earn their money.
I will say this. I remember, that's surprising about the phone calls. I thought it would be, I knew the rules had changed. I will say this. When I was getting recruited back in the 80s, it was unlimited. And I remember telling my mother, tell them I'm not here. It's so bad. So what those kids really are getting phone calls from you guys really more than than coaches as much, if it's just
Now,
one.
what the coaches do, they friend them on Facebook, they friend.
That was the other part. What about
Yeah, on
Twitter and Facebook?
Yeah, if a coach wants a kid to call him at a certain time, he says, hey, sends them a private message. It can't be a public message on Twitter or Facebook. It has to be a
It
private.
has to be a public
Say-
tweet.
No, it has to be private.
Private, I'm sorry.
Can't
Okay.
be public.
Okay.
But, it says, hey, Joe, give me a call at 7:30 tonight. So really, the
'Cause you-
limitations
you can
is
skirt
not
that,
bad.
right? So that's an easy way to skirt.
Yeah, and then you call the high school coach and say, hey, David Basil, hey, can you have Chris call me at 7 o'clock tonight or something like that. That's another way to get around it.
Is Twitter something and Facebook, is that something you like about the recruiting process, or is that a loophole you don't like it, you'd rather it be phone, or just nothing you can do, genie out of the bottle kind of thing?
I'm kind of biased because Twitter and Facebook benefit me so much in what I do and getting a hold of kids that it's more of a mechanism for me than anything else, because a lot of times it's hard to get a hold of them. So they're so in tune to their social media, that's where I get with them.
What about all this attention? Is this a negative that we give these kids? This was an argument today. Are we, they got a newspaper article in, they're a 10th or 11th grader, or, they've got Facebook posts, and you got fans recruiting. Do you think it's too much? Do you think it elevates a kid's ego, self-esteem too much?
It can. It just depends on the kid.
Do you see more of that or less of that?
I see it. I see it. And the thing is, I don't necessarily get it from the kid very much, but I hear it from other people saying he's kind of got a little bit of a big head. From the high school coaches or somebody around him say he needs to kind of tone it down or whatever. But for the most part, the kids are very respectful, and like I said, that's one of the things I really enjoy.
I think there are a lot of kids who think they're better than they actually are, and it's difficult for me to say that they're not. I mean, I'm not going to tell them they're not, but
Yeah, I bet you're talking on the phone. You got this reporter calling him, and hey, man, I'm pretty good if you're calling me, right?
yeah, and what they don't understand is that I'm going to call you from 5-star to 3-star if you're getting recruited, period, if you're getting recruited by FAU or Arkansas. So there is a drastic drop-off from Razorbacks recruits and Owls recruits.
Well, I would imagine your phone bill's a lot heavier than his. How in the heck do you keep up with 420 Division I players? There's no way you can, right? You just do the best you can with.
Well, I just upgraded my iPhone recently, and I thought all my contacts disappeared, and I thought I was dead.
So are you contacts with all the high school coaches in Florida, mostly?
Most of the coaches, and I got all the players' cell phone numbers too.
You do? Wow, that has to take a
Rich
lot.
does too.
What's that?
How do you accumulate all the cell phone numbers of all these kids? How do you go about the process of just?
The high school coaches, or
Okay, they give them to you,
or,
okay.
or on Twitter, I'll say, hey, can I get your number? I'd like to talk to you, and I ask him for a number. He'll ask me for a number. Different people throughout the country, I'll ask them for numbers. We try to help one another out, and because sometimes you can't get a number. I mean,
Right.
everybody else is talking to the kid, but you're not.
That's your key.
You better get the number.
Well, let's talk about talent. It's obvious Arkansas does not have the talent level where it needs to be to compete. As a guy who does recruiting, and I'm sure, Chris, you've been able to watch some of the Razorback games, what's the explanation from a guy who's been writing about these recruits for years now? What's happened? Why do we have the situation?
Current state of the.
That's correct.
I know a lot of people don't want to hear it, but Bobby's strength was coaching on the field. It wasn't recruiting. He wasn't a people person, and I think everybody pretty much knows that. And the latter part of the years he was at Arkansas, he would not make a lot of phone calls to kids. And when Nick Saban, Urban Meyer,
They all do
whoever
it.
is making calls to kids, the kids. If you get a call from the head coach, that really stands out to the kid. And he loved X's and O's, but he didn't enjoy the personal relationships, and it kind of caught up. And you're seeing that right now.
Did you realize this was coming, Richard? Did you see? I'll give you an example, and I hate to even point out kids. I just hate to do it, but for example, some of the secondary players. I've said it before that some of those kids would have a hard time starting at the highest classification in Florida, Texas high schools. Did you see this coming that they were going to be? Because we'd already had some problems defensively, but did you, for what you do, did you think that would be the situation would be as bad as it is?
After the 2010 season, I could see kind of a drop off in the future. How much I didn't know, because each recruiting class can kind of change a program. But I saw some of it coming, And then I'll just tell you, I mean, when these coaches got on campus, they were shocked. They were shocked by.
But you know what's funny? We didn't hear. I don't think as we as fans we didn't hear that, and I think that's a catch-22 because the coach can't go, oh my goodness, you know, oh Lord, you got to go. Hey, these are good kids and going to compete, and that's the catch-22. You got to sell tickets. You
Every class is great.
Yeah, you can't go. You can't go. Oh my, check back with me in 3 years, and you can't do that. So now we were talking earlier. Coach Bielema has a focus on Florida because of his previous time there. Talk about the Razorback connection with the coaches that they have now, and talk about what the perception is from Floridians, football players, high school coaches, about Arkansas in general in the SEC, and now with Bielema.
I think right now what people are seeing, and because it wasn't as prevalent with Petrino's staff and maybe beyond that, is that Coach Bielema and his staff are coming into Florida, and they're recognizing that they're not really centralizing on one area. They're covering the whole state of Florida, and they're grabbing recruits out of areas, especially like where Randy Shannon, assistant coach, is familiar with down in South Florida, where there's a heavy artillery, if you want, of recruits down there who can go help you out. As a matter of fact, Dade County and Broward County are the two heaviest recruited counties in the country. And so they're.
How many kids come out of those two counties?
I think last year they were about 70 each.
70 kids per count,
Yeah.
D1 kids,
One
out of
county.
each county.
It's crazy.
We talked about Denver Kirkland and Alex Collins. Talk about that process and getting those guys.
Both of them down there from that area, exactly. And
Broward County, is that where they were from? Or
Denver's from Dade, and
Wow,
Alex is
yeah.
from Broward. And what they've done is they've made a presence down there, especially with Randy Shannon and his familiarity with having recruited some of those guys in the past, probably when they were really young. But what these kids have to know is that when you come in there as a coach who acts like he's caring about the individuals and things like that, when these guys don't come from necessarily great backgrounds as far as family and things like that, it's really more of a structure that finds these recruits as more comfortable in a situation, and that's where it really plays into their head. You know, is this a place where they're going to treat me like family? Am I going to live for 4 years and enjoy my time? Now, a lot of them might think they're going to be there for 4 years, but the reality hits when they get on campus.
and then you had a situation with Alex Collins with the mother, and that was even that was a challenge. That's something you really don't want to have to fight, is the mama not wanting the son to go all the way to Arkansas. My mama didn't care; she was glad to get me out of the house in Panama City, but down there in South Florida, that's somewhat of a challenge, or is it?
Yeah, it really is, and it's not really just the parents. It's more what they call the handlers or the hangers-on who they really do get in these kids' heads and get them to go places. And some people say they're taking handouts. These handlers, or whatever you want to call them, they're getting money from colleges to help steer them in directions that maybe you wouldn't have thought.
Is that happening? Do you see that quite a bit?
I don't see it, but I know it's got to be happening. I hear about it happening, and you got to wonder when kids are going to certain places where that came from.
So it's very difficult for Bielema to come in and maybe pick off the 5 stars from Saban or the Jimbo Fisher, Florida State's #1. But again, the Florida talent's so deep that you think with this, not just Randy Shannon, who was the other coach that's got the great
Charlie
connection?
Partridge, right?
Yeah, Charlie Partridge has got a great connection in Florida. So that's the key, that they could come in there, even though we're not doing well for ability to play. When you look at the freshmen that are playing now, I'm sure that will be one of the selling points as well for those kids.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime a coach can say, look at our freshmen now who are playing, I think there's 3 on defense right now.
3 on defense, 4, including Hunter Henry, who is his head coach is right there. You got 4 on offense that's starting. 3, is it Phylon, Ellis, Brooks Ellis, and any other freshmen? Is that it? Wise?
We got Denver.
Yeah, on offense. Yeah, you got
Offense.
yeah.
As far as Ellis and
Ellis and Phylon.
I think they're the only.
Yeah,
Well,
there's-
Phylon's a
He's
red
redshirt
shirt.
freshman.
Those are redshirt
Redshirt
freshmen, yeah.
freshman. What do you think, Richard, as far as the talent here in Arkansas? Who are the guys that we got to get? I know there's one down in El Dorado that's committed, and he is a legit 4-star guy. Talk about him.
Yeah, Bijan. What
What's
a
his
great
name?
kid.
Bijan?
Bijan Jackson. And saw him at the opening, which had the top 150 prospects throughout the country. And he demolished this Montel McBride, Alabama offensive lineman commitment. It was no contest. And then the J.C. Hausner, the #1 center in the country, he bull rushed him with no effort. Then J.C. got him the second time, but he's committed to Alabama. He bench presses 415 pounds, and you know about his power
He
clean.
power cleans. I'm proud to have started. I started the state high school weightlifting meet 20 years ago to get the kids here in Arkansas stronger. This kid down in El Dorado, as a junior, power clean 350. There's just not a ton of college guys power, and power clean is the waist explosion. So you got a guy who's, how big is he, Richard?
6'2", 330. It
So,
just depends what he does
Not only is
during the
how much
weekend.
he eats, yeah. True. Not only is he 6'2", 330, but that's a kid that comes out of high school, like you see at Alabama, and walks on the field and play. Now, I'm not saying strength is the most important thing, but if you want to look at the Alabama and Florida State freshmen, you see a kid who's physically ready to play. Who else
He is
besides Bijan?
As far as this class that can come in, Jared Cornelius is a receiver from Shreveport Evangel. Saw him at the Arkansas Elite Camp in July. Just one of the top prospects in Louisiana, and a guy that really can make things happen after the catch, in which you don't have that right now. You need a guy like him to come in.
See a highly recruited guy, a 3 or 4 star guy.
He's not, he's like Tom Leeming has him like a 3-star, but he's a guy that I know Arkansas is counting on to play immediately.
Well, Chris, I love the story of Johnny Manziel and Robert Griffin III, both guys that wanted to go to Texas. Texas didn't look at them. Manziel was sort of overlooked. And I think, Arkansas, who may not be able to get – this is my theory when it comes to Arkansas. Arkansas may not be able to be like Alabama and sign 5 5-stars and 15 4-stars. But you get those guys, you get about 5 guys on each side of the ball that are NFL talent. And then you get another 5 or 6 that are great football players that may be tweeners. They may be 3 stars, but they're great 3 stars. Because and you can win with that. I remember when I played, we had guys, I had Steve Atwater on one side, and not all of us were NFL level, but we were darn good football players. I was a first-team All-State guy out of Florida, highest classification. So you get those guys who are winners. You find guys like Manziel. You find guys like Robert Griffin III. How can a coach find those kind of guys if they're not going to get the 5s and 4 stars?
Obviously, they have scouts and people let them know, but the thing about the stars is that at some point somebody tags them with a 4 or 5 star. I don't buy into the star rating system because they miss so many kids, I think. And we don't even star rank at my paper. But
No stars at the Orlando Sentinel.
no stars.
Do you do the stars?
No, and I agree with him because I see there's a Stephen Lewis receiver out of Florida that Arkansas is bringing in for an official visit December the 6th, and I looked at his video and he's like 2-star on one service, 3 on it, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And if you want to look, just Stephen Lewis and just type in his name, Google, and you'll probably see Huddle, Hudl. Look at his video and tell me if he's not a electrifying type receiver. And he's not very, highly rated. And there, not too long ago, there like 2 or 3 years ago, there was a defensive lineman, out-of-state defensive lineman that Arkansas was recruiting, and he's supposed to have 30-plus offers, one of the top prospects in the country, according to the services. Arkansas didn't like him, didn't recruit him. He went elsewhere. And just because I see some kids that I don't claim to be a great evaluator. I think I'm pretty decent, but I'm not on the level of these college coaches, and a lot of these I'm amazed at how people put emphasis on these star ratings when most of the people that do that don't have the experience that the college coaches have. It's easy to see a kid that's a 5-star and say,
you can spot. Yeah,
it's easy, and you can, but we talk about Saban. Yeah, he signs all those guys. I think a lot of that is he's a great evaluator too. He knows who is a legitimate 5-star and who's not, and then they do a great job of developing them.
Yeah, and how many guys are not stars until Saban recruits them, and then they're 5 stars?
Yeah.
Believe me, that is
Good-
the truth.
good point.
That's college coaches that tell you that, and other people, high school.
Once
coaches will
Alabama
say
gets
that.
on you, your star ranking goes up.
Yeah.
Well, what about too? Richard, I tell the kids. Zach Cocker was a kid that Arkansas didn't even offer, and now he turns out being the all-time career kicker.
Well, he was on a.
Goes ASU, right?
Well, he was committed to ASU. He got the offer coming back from Hawaii, an official visit, and it was a dream come true for him.
As good as anybody. And like Corliss Marshall, I'm telling you, Corliss Marshall should be. I don't know what his star was.
Is it like a 2 or 3?
I'm telling you, you watched him last week against Ole Miss. He was running by guys. Just like, Coach, get him on the field. Put him out there and let him make some mistakes, but he is an athlete, and those are the kind of guys
And
you got
I
to have.
see some guys in that, and I miss them. You know, as far as I think that, I don't know if that kid can play college football. I told everybody he's an SEC type player.
Yeah.
You look at his video and you go, wow. And
He's not the biggest guy in the world. Is that the deal? Is that?
No, I mean, I think some of it's location. It was some of it was he had to do some work academically, and it's amazing how schools will not do anything until a kid gets qualified. There's a kid that Arkansas may get on that I'm telling you is just unbelievable, but schools are not getting on him right now because he hasn't made his ACT score. If he does that, I'm telling you, this kid, and I'll write about him or whatever. The kid is amazing.
Have you ever had something you've been wrong about that turned out that was a Prairie All-American player, was a Prairie Player of the Year that just was a bust? That's part of the nature of what you do, right?
Oh, yeah, and obviously you don't know till they get there. But I'm sure there's been plenty of guys who, I think when his senior year, Jeff Driscoll, quarterback at Florida, he was the player of the year,
Yeah.
national player of the year. And I don't know that I necessarily saw him playing at UF, but he was a good quarterback.
But he was just like Mitch Mustang. You know, you see the players of the year candidates, and sometimes they just don't translate. Then you got a Johnny Manziel, nobody looked at, 3-star, and he's the maybe the greatest player that's played in 30 years.
Next thing you know, he's signing helmets.
And he's signing helmets. That's exactly right. Who are the top three? Who are the top 3 or 4 coaches in the South in terms of maybe even nationally, head coaches recruiting wise? Obviously, I know you're throwing Saban, but who else besides Saban?
I think Charlie Strong is really one of the top-notch guys. His familiarity with Florida is obvious because he was at Florida for a number of years, but he has a relationship with people that he's built over the years, and he also has continued that to build more relationships, and he just does a great job, and so does his staff.
Anybody else beside Nick and Charlie that sort of
I like
impressed
what Jimbo Fisher's staff does. He's got a great arsenal of assistant coaches who just people love them.
The assistant coaches are very important in the process. Yeah.
Like Jeremy Pruitt, who came over from Alabama, that is a guy who's a really personable guy to the recruits. They really love him, and that's really key in the recruiting process. If you feel like you can trust somebody, that's what they want.
Chris said that I asked him about Alabama versus Florida State talent-wise. He said first string, Florida State can match up with Alabama. The difference is, as the game goes on and you start sitting in your next 2 guys, that's where Alabama probably has the advantage, is that their second, third teamers are probably better than the Florida State second, third team.
Yeah, and I think that Jimbo Fisher obviously knows that because he's trying to get his second teamers on the field earlier this year, especially in these blowouts where getting them experience. And when he does have to count on them, then they're ready.
Most impressive high school player coming out of Florida, 2 or 3 of the best players you've ever seen coming out of Florida, that you said this guy's going to be good, and maybe any did turn out to be good.
The most impressive was D. Hart, came out of Orlando, 2010, I believe. Signed with Alabama. He's still at Alabama. He's had 2 knee surgeries, and he's still trying to get in the game. He plays every once in a while, but he was the best.
Anybody besides him? What about Tebow? How big was Tebow coming out of school? That was the same year as Mitch Mustang, if I'm not mistaken. I think he came out the same year.
Yeah, Tebow, he started to gather a big following as he progressed, especially in the state playoffs when he had such big numbers, like 7 touchdown passes in one game. And it was really kind of weird for him, too, because he was a homeschooled kid, so I don't think that it picked up for him right away. But obviously, eventually, everybody jumped on him.
Best recruits that you've seen, that you knew when you saw him in high school, wow, this kid's going to be a great college player?
After I saw Bijan in person, I saw him on video, but when I saw him in person, I think he's got a chance to be really special.
Do you think Hunter Henry would be as productive this year?
Yeah, matter of fact, I called somebody. I called somebody when you guys played Ashdown in the playoffs, and when he was a sophomore, and I told somebody this kid's going to be a top 100 prospect. And like I said, no great evaluator, but it was easy to see with him.
I'll tell you another little thing that you may think this is funny, but I think it's the truth. Darius Philon is a kid who flirted, I think, with signing with Alabama. I don't know if he signed or committed. Comes to the Razorbacks, and he's not the tallest guy. I think he went to Vigor. I think he went to
Vigor.
Vigor, if you know, is a great high school. It produces a lot of great players. Well, physically, he's not the 6'4", 6'5" guy that you get from Alabama. He's 2 or 3 inches shorter, but I'm telling you, he's got the biggest butt you have ever seen on a player. And I'm telling you, that's why you watch him. He dominates. And so those are the guys you can sometimes get that may not be 6'5", may not have quite the measurements, but 2 or 3 inches, but they're very powerful, just like this kid, from the Bijan kid, 6'2", 330. So I think physically, you've got to be able to come out of high school with a chance to play just like Bijan, to be able to have an impact early on, just like the kid Denver Kirkland and Alex Collins. They both. Speaking of Alex Collins, real quick, what's it like dealing with the parents of these recruits when you call? Are they easy to deal with? Do they like the fact that you called? Do they like the process or no?
Most of them are pretty good and very helpful, and some might even set rules for when their kids can take calls. There's some are really a pain, I tell you that much.
In what way?
It's even beyond what you would ever expect.
Wow, like what?
I mean, some of these people have expectations of what you should rank them at or what you should write about them.
They pay attention to that, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Matter of fact, I had a kid recently tell me, because his dad really was detrimental to him in some of his recruiting, and some schools backed off because of his father. And recently he just Facebook messaged me that he cut off all ties with his dad.
Wow.
Which is very sad to me.
Wow. What about you dealing with parents?
Yeah.
Is there any difference between Arkansas parents and, say, down in Florida or other states? All about the same?
Not really. Well,
We're not
you know,
friendlier here?
The parents in Arkansas, for the most part, know me. And so the parents out of state, you have to kind of tell you who you are.
And that's a great point. You got this stranger calling your kid at 8 o'clock on some night. Hey, I'm Richard Davenport. Want to talk to your son.
What's your background?
Yeah, what's your background? What's your measurements? Yeah, that's a little dicey there, isn't it?
But yeah, you do, and I did write one time, and I won't mention who the kid was, but I saw him in camp, and he was a 5-star, and there was a kid that was rated a 3-star, and I said he was way better than the 5-star, and man, did I get it from that family, and you know what, it was a truth, and I'm not going to mention the kid, but it was a truth, and other people said that too, and the coaching staff said that too.
Wow. I was just thinking of some of the freshmen in Arkansas. Did you expect them to come in and have the kind of impact they did? Did you see that kind
I
of?
thought so with Hunter. Thought so at Denver Kirkland. You talk about him. First time I saw him, I was like Alabama offensive lineman.
He's 6'5", 330.
One of the biggest offensive linemen I've ever seen. You know, I was somewhat surprised with Dan Skipper.
Skipper's 6'10", 300.
Because I expect, he's about 315 now, but he was at like 290.
As a freshman.
And, coming in, and I thought, he'll probably redshirt and play as a redshirt freshman. I knew Coach Pittman said he may be the best of the three, of Reed Kohler.
Yeah, right.
But I thought he'd be delayed a year. But
you talk about a kid that you go up to the line of scrimmage, and there's 6'10", 315. He's getting starting experience now. And also, just think 2 years from now when he's a junior and he's 6'10", 350, and he's got 3 years of experience.
That's what they anticipate him being, 6'10", 350.
And at tackle.
Yeah. And he moves, and he's a freakish athlete.
I will say this, just to say they don't always get it right. One of my favorite stories is that my senior year, there was a kid that looked like he was about 6'4", 6'5", about this big around. We thought he was a basketball player. We sort of joked. We said, hey, listen, Barnhill, at that time, Barnhill's down there. And you know who it turned out to be? Wayne Martin. That's exactly right. He ended up being one of the great players in Razorback history and filled out. And so those are those ones that I was talking about. If you can find a great athlete that may be that tweener, and he works hard and he always going to become physically dominant.
You don't see as many Wayne Martins nowadays because the coaches have to win immediately. You see a lot of the mid-majors, they'll take a chance on a Wayne Martin. Take a chance on Wayne Martin. But, I mean –
Willie Rofe, same kind of deal.
Exactly. If you have the but if you got a good program going and we can give him a couple years to develop. I think that's a good idea, and I think Coach Bielema and the staff would do that.
Do you think Bielema gets them back? Do you think they can continue to do what they did last year? Do you think they'll be back competitive from a talent wise?
Yeah, I think if they're continuing this recruiting trend that they're on right now, there's no doubt about it. There's 3 guys that are on right now in Florida.
Yeah, mention the tight end real quick that you really.
Well, Rayon Pierce just committed. What was that last month, Rich? Mm-hmm. And
he's a true stud down there. He's a tight end. What is he? 6'4", 6'5"?
230, I think.
Yeah, 6'4", 230. Runs a legitimate 4.53 according to his coach.
Very athletic.
Very athletic. Kind of like a Jeremy Sprinkle.
Right.
But probably maybe a little bit more skilled. But because Jeremy played every sport known to man, and that kind of hurt his development. But he's got a chance to be special.
Yeah, when you look at his stats, you won't see it because they don't throw the ball.
No, they don't.
And no sign of decommit from him based on how poor the Razorbacks are playing, which could always be a
I
possibility.
don't think so because obviously it was already there when he committed. So.
Anybody? You mentioned a couple other players.
Yeah, there's a kid I really like. Name is Edgar Saranud. at Sarah Nord, something like that, at Plantation High School American Heritage. And
Ooh,
this
good,
kid
good
is,
players in Plantation.
he is special. And,
And
yeah,
he's a commit to, he's somebody who's leaning towards Arkansas?
he's uncommitted. He has Arkansas in, I think, top 3 or 4. And he's a player who's underrated, I think, right now. And if Arkansas got him, they'd get a special guy. He's a defensive tackle, 6'1", so he's undersized a little bit for that, about 240. No, he's 290.
6'1", 290.
6'1", 290, and he's very athletic. The kid moves. He's got a great technique.
And for those who have a concern about height, we remember those Miami teams that had those guys that were 6'2", 6'3", that were 290, 300.
Sure.
Yeah. And there was one other. There was one other player. That's 2, tight end, tackle, and there's one other you said?
Well, I like, me and Rich were talking about last week, there's a kid who's committed to Louisville, Rashawn Shaw, out of Fort Pierce Central, and his teammate, Sharif Rahim, who was committed to LSU. Those 2 kids could end up going somewhere together. Now, Shaw's the better player out of that bunch, and he likes Arkansas as his number 2 team right now, and he's committed to Louisville, but he said 90%. I think he's even told Rich 80%.
I don't know, but I talked to his dad the other night. He'll be making an official visit in December. But they're on several other guys. But
Any other ones you want to mention real
but
quick?
as far as Ravion Pierce, why he's committed to Arkansas, and why I think he'll stick. Charlie Parcher graduated from Plantation.
That's
High
right. He's
School.
got a good connection with Plantation.
Yeah. So Charlie Parcher's got a great name down in South Florida, along with Bielema and Randy Shannon. Oh my gosh, those coaches love them.
Anybody that we've got to have in Arkansas beside Bijan that we've got to.
Well, obviously, you want Josh. You want Josh Frazier from Springdale Harbor. Right
He's the
now,
big tackle, right?
He's the big tackle. Right now, I'd say he's leaning towards Alabama because he went to the Alabama-LSU game. And it's kind of hard. You know, if you guys ever been to Alabama and been to a game, you can understand how a kid can be wowed by that. And his mom visited on Sunday. Yeah, last night. Went to the practice by herself. She loves Coach Bielema and Coach Parcher.
That
and
helps.
Staff. Yeah, and I think she wants him to go to Arkansas, but she's going to let him make up
Just
his
needs to let him
her
know
mind.
before
Well, is
Alex
that-
Collins' mom did.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, that's an interesting point, and I know we got to wrap things up here. But what happens if does the coach realize if the kid is leaning towards a different school that he can work on the mama and maybe have
Oh,
an
yeah.
impact?
They know that.
And
You work on Mama.
And how do you work on mama? Do you send cards? Do you start recruiting mama and maybe not less of the kid? Because it works, right?
You do whatever works.
Yeah, well, whatever works. And we're talking about tons of mailings and.
Yeah, well, Mama was very important to Denver Kirkland because she came up on his official visit, and Coach Bielema and Coach Pittman and Coach Shannon won her over, and she was totally good about him leaving. And I'll tell you what, a lot of those kids in the inner city and down in that area, they want to get out of that climate, and I hear that a lot from kids.
How good is Bielema? How good is Bielema one-on-one compared to some of the other coaches in the SEC?
I think he's really good. I think he's got a very good rapport, and the players who he's recruiting, they see that. And as long as he can be a personable type of a head coach, because as we talked about, the head coaches who call the kids and get personal with them, they really like that a lot.
And then I know in Florida, they can look at Denver Kirkland and Alex Collins and say, hey, starting in the SEC team, and we might could do that as well. And, of course, Frank Broyles always told the old story that if he had to, he'd eat 1 piece of pie, 2 pieces of pie, or 3 pieces of pie to make mama happy, right?
Yeah. I tell you what, the best thing I can say about that, Travis Swanson told me before the season, he says, I wished I had 2 more years of eligibility. That's
how much he thinks of Coach
that
Bielema.
right there, when kids go on official visits, they talk to the players. And if they hear negative things like, yeah, you're going to win, but you're not going to like it here, what do you think they're going to do? You're not going to hear that. You're going to hear very positive things at Arkansas from the players about this coaching staff and Coach Bielema, and that's key. Coach Bielema is number one because as the head coach, he represents the university, and that's who the kids and the parents, especially the parents, look to.
Richard Davenport, Chris Hayes. Let's give them a round of
Hey,
applause.
David,
They
I
did a
wanna-
great job.
I want to recognize my mom.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on just 1 second. I didn't think about this. Chris has his mother here that came in from Kansas. He only gets to see her once or twice a year. Where's she at?
Stand up. That's Kay and her husband Dewey. And my aunt came along too. It's Alana.
Welcome to Little Rock.
And
Let's
her
give
friend
these
Donna.
guys a round of applause and welcome. Glad y'all are here. Next week, Barry Foster, everybody. If you've got recruiting questions,
Thanks a
come
lot.
up and ask Richard or Chris. Thank you, guys.